Welcome to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based photographer Tavishima Ayede. Today, I have a rant, even though I promised I wouldn't be going into too many of these, but sometimes some things happen and I just can't resist. So today, my rant is about how not to look for customers and how not to look for partners in prospecting or canvassing or looking for new business or whatever it is that you call it. Someone hit me up on WhatsApp a while ago, maybe a week or 2 weeks back. Let's call him Good Luck Jonathan. I don't want to use his real name, so let's just call him Good Luck Jonathan. So Good Luck Jonathan was real polite. He hit me up on WhatsApp. He's from Bielsa. He's into charcoal production. Charcoal production? Yes, because another business that I run with my brother and another associate, it's more geared towards the agricultural sector, if we could put it that way. So we've been doing a lot of exports in charcoal and sesame, even though the long-term plan is to start producing some commodities back at home. Processing some commodities back at home, like shea butter. When I say home, I mean Benue State. So that's where we're from. That's our axis. We're from Benue State, and of course, a couple of other players that we deal with are from around the same region. So Benue, Nasarawa, those areas. Those are the other things that we dabble in and intend to double down on some more in the future. Now, even though this fellow got in touch with me and was trying to set up some partnerships or do some business in charcoal, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's not anything that we can learn of from this whole encounter as wedding professionals. Because for those of you who've been following me from my earliest episodes, you'll remember that I believe that businesses are essentially the same. We all have to become salespeople. We all have to start garnering attention and garnering business for ourselves. So even though when it comes down to fulfillment, we are doing slightly different things, whether it's charcoal or photography or wedding planning, essentially all of business is the same. And so you have a lot to learn when you hear someone in the fashion industry talking about how they prospect and how they look for business. Even though that's fashion, you're going to be able to find things that will relate to your own sphere of business. So even though we are wedding professionals, we still can learn some stuff from the charcoal people, and likewise they can learn from us or from the furniture or fashion industry or whatever industry out there. Okay, so back to our friend Good Luck Jonathan, not his real name. Okay, so where are we? Okay, yes, so he's into charcoal production. He's looking for customers. He saw the videos that we put up on YouTube a long time ago. Side note, as a side note, I'll say wedding professionals are maybe not entirely convinced about the merits of being on YouTube, but when it comes to the charcoal business, we found that online assets we put on YouTube actually are very useful, because we haven't been updating lots of content on the YouTube page. In fact, we haven't put anything up for the agricultural business, which is called Dove Agro Seeds. We haven't put anything up in the last 3 years, but we noticed that the first content that we put up whenever my brother was in the bush sourcing for material, that seems to get us a lot of attention, and that's where we get a lot of our inquiries from. So I think as wedding professionals, if you are suited to that sort of thing, because not everybody is good about taking advantage of video, but if you are, you might take advantage of it, because it seems that video content on YouTube is evergreen and works for a very long time, which is not necessarily the same kind of activity that you're going to get if you use Instagram videos or Facebook videos, because for Instagram and Facebook videos, you put them up and they seem to have a very limited shelf life. So Facebook videos in particular, you put them up today on a Monday and by Tuesday they're irrelevant. Maybe Instagram videos last a little bit more longer in your timelines because people can see them maybe for another 3 or 4 days or whatever. But bottom line is, YouTube surprisingly does have some benefits. Okay, now back to the rant. So he saw the videos on YouTube, and because of that, he wanted to do some business. And in the WhatsApp message, he was asking for 5 minutes of my time to talk further. So I'll give him some props because it looks like he already does some education when it comes to sales and marketing. Because this ask about can I have 5 minutes of your time is something that is being touted a lot in the American business space. So you have marketing professionals, business professionals going on about how you hit people up and they ask for 5 minutes of their time so that you can discuss the business idea further. So for that, I'll give him props. He seems to be learning and studying, and he's putting it out there in action, because he hit me up completely cold, completely strange. I don't know anything about the fellow, and yeah, I'll give him props for that. He's reaching out, trying to grow his business, and that's a good thing. So the rest of the conversation went this way. I told him, I tried to be, first of all, I didn't ignore him because I have a soft spot for people who reach out and try to drum up business with strangers, because that's how we pretty much started our businesses. That's the wedding photography and video, while my brother was still a strong video partner in the business. And the same thing with the agricultural business. We spent a lot of time going to go and meet strangers, people we didn't know. Of course, we started with friends and family, but then a lot of time was also spent in the early days talking to people who we did not know, trying to see how we can drum up business. And so because of that, I have a soft spot for people who hit me up and who want to talk about doing business with me, or trying to talk through whatever sales challenges that they have. So that is just my personal soft spot for them. But for those of you who are listening, I'm sure you can attest to the fact that a lot of people are just not going to respond to any strange WhatsApp messages, because I don't know you. You hit me up cold, you ask me for 5 minutes of my time. Most people will just delete. Other people, like my wife, who are not so charitable, in quote, will just hit block. Okay, so I responded. I told him that buying from Bayelsa is not going to be a smart business decision for us. That's for Dove Agro Seeds, for charcoal exports, because of how it affects pricing. Because if charcoal is a commodity business, so we have to be able to sell at a low price. Because of that, it means that we have to be able to buy at a low price. Now, if the port is in Lagos and you guys are all the way in Bayelsa, sourcing from Bayelsa means that we're going to have higher transportation costs, and at the end of the day, we'd have to pass that along to the end consumer, and that would make our bids uncompetitive. And so I tried to be polite, and I let him know. That's the gist that I gave him, basically, that purchasing for Bayelsa was not going to be a smart business decision for us. He replied. He figured that we can have amicable discussions to resolve that, and he still wanted 5 minutes of my time. I responded saying that I was going to pass across contacts to him for the local supply of charcoal, and I think he would have some success fulfilling it there, because for local trade in charcoal, the margins, you're not necessarily aiming for higher margins because it's less risky since it's a local market. So there's a little bit more room there. So I mean, it's possible to say that you're in Lagos and you want to sell to the domestic market, and you are sourcing your charcoal from Bayelsa. So that could work. So I asked him if he was interested, and he said, "Oh yeah, that he was." And so I said I would pass across to him several contacts so that he could take advantage of those if he could, because we also get those kind of contacts. We have people who want to source or supply to the local market, and because they've seen our YouTube videos, they hit us up and they want to do business with us. But that's not the sort of business that we're interested in, because we don't have any apart from not having any interest in it, we don't have any know-how about how the local supply chains how the local supply chains work, and so that's not something that we're interested in. But of course, I always keep on to the numbers. I keep them handy just in case we're trying to fulfill an order and we have a shortfall in supply. Then there are these other people that we can reach out to see how we can make up the quantity that we need for our order. So I always have phone numbers. I always have phone numbers and company details stored in Evernote. So I handed a few of them over to Good Luck Jonathan. And remember, that's not his real name, so I'm not talking about the former president. So I handed them over to Good Luck, and he got the phone numbers on the 5th of September. And I sent him a reminder on the 7th of September. No action. He didn't carry out any action on that list. I also sent him a reminder on the 8th of September. He didn't carry out any action on the list. I sent him another reminder on the 15th of September. He didn't carry out any action on that list. And as of today's date, it's still the same. He hasn't carried out any actions and there hasn't been any response since. Unfortunately, when I sent out those numbers, I did the responsible thing at the time, which was to let these other people know that, hey, I'm giving someone your contact details. This is what the fellow says. He might hit you guys up to see if you guys can talk business. Let me know how it goes. I want to be sure that I've sent across someone credible your way. Now, this does not reflect well for me when you reach out to me cold and I try to hook you up with some other acquaintances that I have, and you cannot follow up on simple, basic next steps that we agreed upon in our phone call. Well, anyway, before I get into that, let me just go into what I think the major problems with his approach are. First of all, his approach was text and not phone led. Like I mentioned in the example with you guys and my wife, it is easier to ignore text messages. And so I think that when you're prospecting like this, if you're going to be reaching out to strangers and people you don't know, especially for people like me who readily leave their phone numbers all over the internet, it shows that they are open to phone calls. They're okay with being called. If I didn't want any phone calls, I wouldn't put my phone number all over YouTube online assets. I wouldn't give it out on this podcast. I wouldn't do stuff like that. So I'm clearly open to phone calls. So phone calls should be what you lead with when you're doing this kind of cold outreach. That's you're calling people who don't know you and you know very little about them. It will be less easier to ignore, and then apart from that, you're going to be able to have a fruitful and hopefully spirited conversation in a quick number of minutes, and you guys are going to be able to wrap it up about whether you can do business together or whether you can't do business together, instead of sending WhatsApp messages or text messages back and forth over the course of 3 weeks before you get to a no. It's nice to get a yes or a no as quickly as possible, and it's very easy if you know how to make the right kind of phone calls when you're reaching out to strangers. It's very easy in 2 or 3 minutes to get to a yes or a no or a maybe and what the next stage is. However, I won't say using the phone is the holy grail. You ought to have a multi-channel approach when it comes to these sorts of things. So have in mind that even though you're going to make a phone call, at some point you'll have to resort to WhatsApp messages or email or video or Zoom or whatever it is that the context might lead to. Now, the second problem with his approach is that he was only focused on him and what he wants. He wanted 5 minutes of my time and he wanted to see if he could get some business from me. It's not a good idea when you're calling people up to have yourself as the focus of yourself only as the focus of the interaction. You have to try and anticipate your subject's needs. You have to try and anticipate and see how you can be of value to the other person. So if the crux of the pitch was, hey, I found your details, this is what we do, I'm calling you up because we want to see how we could be of service to you or to be of mutual service to each other. I mean, that's a better sounding pitch than saying, Hey, I saw your stuff online. I want you guys to buy from me. So that's not a very palatable way of going about it. Now, another thing that was wrong with his approach is he assumed that the transportation cost issues could be readily addressed. And what's bad here is that he assumed that it can be easily addressed without asking any questions. If he had asked, "Oh, really? How badly does the transportation cost affect your price?" I mean, we would have started talking along that line, and if there was room for any amicable resolutions, they would have come across in that exchange if you started asking more questions. Remember from the earlier episodes, for those of you who've been listening to me from the beginning, that sales is a question based discipline. It's not a toasting based discipline. So maybe in the old days, it had to do with how confident you are and how good you can toast, but these days, you have to be very good at asking questions. And then finally, and that's the core of my rant, he had no follow through on agreed actions, which is really bad for business credibility. So the next time that good Lord Jonathan hits me up, because I'm trying to be a nice guy, I might still lend him. I might still lend him my ears. I might still lend him some time. But remember, there are those of you out there listening to this podcast right now who can't be bothered and who will hit delete. And like I mentioned, there are people out there, like my wife, who are just going to hit block. So if you can't have, so first of all, you hit me up, it's blind, and there's very little motivation for us to go ahead with this conversation anyway. I do give you some times. You don't follow through on what it is that we agreed. I mean, how do you now think that in the future I'm going to be open to doing business with you anyway? When you have shown that you don't care about your own credibility and you don't care about squandering my own credibility as well. Now, this rant has gone on for too long, so let me wrap up. How does this apply to wedding planners? It applies all the same. When we try and make these things reach out into the market this way, looking for customers and business partners, by all means, let's make it a phone-led approach or a face-to-face approach when this COVID situation is over. An example I'm going to give is my good friend Laura Michael Phillips of Posh and Pristine Wedding Planners, who is one of the reasons why I run this podcast in the first place, because she said, "You're good at these sorts of things, you're good at what you do, you should start teaching and talking to people about it." And in fact, when she set up her own business school for wedding planners, she was the first person who invited me to start talking about these sorts of matters. And that's how I met her. I was looking for ways to drum up new business, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Let's say 5 years ago. It's definitely before my son was born. And so I combed Instagram looking for people that I thought we could do business together. Her phone number was there, and I had a draft pitch, and so I called. From the phone call, we scheduled a meeting, met at her office. Back then, the office used to be in what's that part of town? Just before Gwarimpa. I can't remember what that part of town is. So it's in between Wusetu and Gwarimpa, that long stretch along the next road. So I went to our office, we had a fruitful conversation, and then that's how we started doing business together, basically. Of course, I had to keep myself open to possibilities, because even though I was there to discuss weddings, we have turned out doing more business together when it comes to parties. We haven't handled any weddings together, so it's been mostly parties. And like I said, we've had partnerships in business training and these sorts of things. So that is how I've met a lot of people within my network in Abuja. Remember, I used to be based in Lagos, so when I came here to Abuja and I was trying to get my photography up and running here, I figured this is what I had to do. Call up strangers, go to their office, sit down, have a chat, see how we can do business, how we can have mutually beneficial partnerships. Now, second point, don't only be focused on what it is that you can get. Always try and anticipate what your subject needs, and those are parts of the conversations that I had with Laura for your clients. What kind of photography do you deliver? What kind of challenges do you guys have? What kind of problems have you had with photographers in the past? Those questions show that I'm paying attention to her needs, her previous history with photographers, because it achieves two things. One, it shows that I do give a hoot about her and her goals, and then it also helps me achieve one thing. If I know what all the missteps she has had with photographers in the past, and the problems that her clients have had with wedding photographers in the past, then I'm not going to repeat those mistakes going forward. It'll be a win-win. Our clients get to be happy that she sent over someone who is reputable and credible, and I also have happy clients all around. So pay attention to what the other person needs as well. And good luck, Jonathan assumed issues about transport and costs. Let's not make assumptions when we're talking to people that we want to do business with and with clients. Whenever we have assumptions, let's ask. If you think something is not going to be an issue, don't assume it's not going to be an issue. So just ask. So the example I'll give is wedding photographers. We wedding photographers, we all have established timelines that we work with, and we just assume that everybody is going to be cool with it. Some people have timelines for their deliverables. Some people have 3 months, some people have 2 months. I work with much less. I try to do 4 days to a week if I can, 2 weeks at most. 3 weeks. At 3 weeks, I'm basically just falling all over myself and apologizing basically, because I think that's really late. So bottom line is, if your deliverables on the timelines is 3 weeks, don't assume that the customer will be cool with 3 weeks. It's something that you should bring up from the beginning. My timelines for delivery is 3 weeks. Are you guys cool with that? And then they will say, 3 weeks. No, we're relocating to Jamaica 1 week after the wedding. Then you guys start having that conversation. You start having it then, right there and then. It's then that you'll know that, okay, if you're going to be moving to Jamaica 1 week after, we're going to have to deliver, so we might have to tack on delivery costs, or we know that we're going to have to double down and get the book ready and delivered week 2. So don't assume. Always ask questions. So wedding photographers out there listening, don't assume that three months for delivery is cool, or 1 month for delivery is cool. Ask. So this is what I do. Are you guys cool with that? They'll either say yes or they'll say no. Either way, we unearth the problem before it becomes a big issue. And then finally, follow through on agreed actions. Wedding professionals, please take this one to heart specifically, because I've noticed that a lot of people around me here in Abuja don't do that. A lot of vendors that I run into here in Abuja don't have sales processes of their own. They don't have a plan for sales which says, this is how I'm going to hook up with these people, this is how I'm going to communicate with them, and this is what the follow-up structure is going to be like. So if you have a plan, then by all means follow through with your plan. It's going to make you seem like a more professional. Again, it's make you seem more professional and more credible. So follow through with your plan. And for those of you who do not have a plan, like good luck Jonathan in this case, he clearly doesn't have a plan for follow-up. Whatever plan it is that the customer initiates, go through with it, because that is going to make you to be a much more credible and professional person. So, good luck Jonathan in this scenario didn't have a plan for follow-up. I told him I was going to give him some numbers. This was the timelines that we agreed to. And I sent him 3 reminders over the course of 2 weeks. If this is what I said, the person who was making the referral, then if you don't have a plan, stick to my plan. There has to be a plan. You just can't let things go all willy-nilly and think that your business is going to be okay. And at the end of the year, you say that Buhari is the reason why you're not making progress. Or the rate of the Naira is the reason why you're not making progress. Or that your uncle in the village is after you. Or that people in church don't like you. Or that this prophet saw this, or this prophet said that. These are not the things that are holding you back in the business. These these sales and marketing related things, these are where the real problems lie. So please have some follow up, game, follow through on commitments, follow through on actions. Wedding professionals, please, you sit down with the bride and the groom and with mommy and daddy or the uncles and aunties, and you guys discuss everything. Let's say you're a wedding planner, and after you discuss everything, they say, well, we can't move ahead on the food court right now because we're not sure if we're going to have 100 people or 200 people because of this COVID situation. And they say, okay, we need about a week to sort this out. If that is what they say, you as the wedding planner have to take the initiative. If they say they need a week to talk it out, then that's cool. You make a note in your diary, 1 week. You push it out in the calendar. And then in a week's time, you make the call, take the initiative. Uncle, auntie, mommy, daddy, bridegroom, you guys said you need 1 week to confirm. Are we still looking at 100 people, or are we still looking at, or are we going to bump it up to 200 or to 250? You take the initiative, you follow through, and that will move the business through. If you just leave it up to them in their own court, at the end of the day, there's no plan. I mean, what are you really executing on? Anyway, let me stop here with this rant. I think I should really stop ranting because I start and then I just get carried away. So, bottom line, things that you shouldn't do when you're trying to drum up business. Don't make it a text-based approach. If you can, let it be phone-led, let it be face-to-face if you can. But at the end of the day, it has to be a multi-channel approach. So you might start with the phone, but be open to go wherever it is that they may lead, even if that includes video and Zoom. Don't only focus on what it is that you want. Try and anticipate what it is that they need. Then, let's see. Question your assumptions. Don't assume that because everything is cool from your end, they're going to be cool with everything. Always ask, this is how we handle this and this and this and this. Is this going to work for you? And then always follow through on whatever agreed timelines and actions that are there. You should have your own process by all means. But if you don't, whatever process it is that the client comes up with is fine. Execute on that. So if you have your own process, roll with it. But if the client says we need 1 week to discuss with the umuna back in the village, and then we'll let you know how many people are coming, then go along with their process. Put it down in the calendar, 1 week. After 1 week, call them up. You discuss with umuna. What did umuna say? What are we doing? For those of you who are Igbo listeners, please forgive me if I use that term wrongly. And let me just wrap it up here. This is the longest episode I've done so far. Thank you very much for listening. Questions, comments, inquiries, or if you think I've said anything heretical here, hit me up, email ayede.taver@gmail.com, or you can WhatsApp, phone call, whatever, Telegram on 080-6466-2140. Thank you very much, guys, for listening. I'll catch you on the next episode.